Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's another episode of FPC Radio Live. It's Thursday, October the 26th, 2023. And John, I know you're excited. A lot of people are excited because basketball season's underway, and all of a sudden, it's the great month of October. You have football in full swing. Hockey has been going for a couple weeks now. The Bruins are 6-0, by the way, and now we have basketball and the World Series starting up. So safe to say this is probably the best stretch of sports the entire year.
Oh, absolutely, because you get all four major sports playing in some iteration, right? Obviously, the World Series, which I don't know many people who really care because it's Texas Rangers against Arizona Diamondbacks, which kind of feels like, I don't know, Titans, Falcons in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's what happens in February. Are we going to be really excited about that? I would have preferred Texas, actually Houston, Philadelphia. We talked about that. It didn't happen. Both of those teams had opportunities, two opportunities each to wrap their series up at home after being up 3-2, coming home, and they couldn't finish off the series. And now we've got Texas and Arizona. But yeah, you got basketball starting up, hockey is a couple weeks in, football's in full bloom, you got college football, all sorts of great stuff. You got, if you're into horse racing, Breeders' Cup in another week or so. So there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited because basketball is my favorite sport. In its heart and soul, baseball is my favorite sport, but it's just kind of lost me the last several years. And I just don't have a player I glom onto. I mean, because I had Barry Bonds as my favorite athlete of all time. So I'm more into basketball, football. I still love baseball. But yeah, I'm excited basketball started up on Tuesday night.
Yeah, and look, I mean, we saw obviously the Celtics got tipped off last night, and boy, it's nice to watch Kristaps Porzingis when he's healthy and playing well, because he scored the most points any Celtic has ever had in his debut, which is pretty crazy to think.
Amazing?
It is.
Yeah, it really is.
And it wasn't like, it wasn't like he dropped 60 points. I mean, he had a great game. What was it? He ended with 30? Was it 30 or 31?
30 points. Tatum at 34 and Porzingis at 30. Sure.
Yeah. And it's like, look, he was great. His presence was felt, especially down the stretch. Obviously, he hits the big three. And then, he's a big man who can hit free throws, which is, again, something that normally you're not excited about your center going up to shoot clutch free throws. But in this case, you felt pretty good with him going up there. And look, I mean, his presence on the court is felt. And you look at the Celtics team, and the funny thing is like you watch that third quarter, and miraculously they actually won that quarter, but it felt like it was like the same old, oh no, not the third quarter again, please. I mean, it's like a half new team. Let's hope that they don't have the same third quarter issues. But no, I mean, really nice debut against the Knicks, obviously, to start the season out 1-0. So definitely a fun night if you're a Celtics fan.
The Knicks have a tendency of playing the Celtics very, very tough. Last year, the Knicks took 3 or 4 during the regular season. They're well coached. They play defense. They play hard. They play together. So every game against them is going to be a slog, even though the Celtics have more front-end talent for sure. But it was nice seeing Porzingis get off to a good start. And the thing about the Celtics, the way they're constructed this year is Jason Tatum has 34, Porzingis has 30, even though Jaylen Brown only had 11. Because you have Porzingis now as a third scoring option, he steps up to being the second scoring option last night, and you can still win. And then even Drew Holiday only had 9 points. But Friday night, you might see Holiday and Brown have big games, and maybe Tatum scales it back a little bit. I think with the Celtics, the players are going to have to accept their roles that on any given night, they may not be the primary scorer, so they're going to have to do other things, play defense, facilitate, do all of those things that help you win because they're that good, they're that talented, and these are things that just have to be worked out, and I think they will, and if they continue on that way and stay healthy, they're going to be right there at the end.
Yeah, and if you think about it, too, I mean, the Celtics really haven't had a big man like Porzingis since really Garnett, and I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that in terms of being able to use their length on the defensive end and then also show incredible prowess on the offensive end. I mean, obviously, those threes, I mean, he was shooting well beyond the 3-point arc. I mean, that just pulling up and dropping them in there. I mean, he can score from inside, from outside, so it's nice. And again, the important thing is, or the you hope that he stays healthy, the entire season. That's the thing. And if he does, well, yeah, the Celtics have a different look that they've had that they haven't had in quite some time. And that's maybe finally what's going to give them what they need to get over the edge because, well, I mean, I think going into the season, it's Milwaukee and Boston in the East right now. And I mean, unless we see something over the course of the first month or so of the season that tells us otherwise, I don't see that necessarily changing. So right now for Boston, especially, okay, you've been to the finals, you were knocking on the door again last year. How do you take the next step? It's the hardest step, but how do you take that next step? And perhaps this, a little bit of a makeover is what was needed. So
In golf, a golf analogy would be like going from a 12 handicap to a 7. Like, it's only 5 strokes, but it's really, really difficult to make up those 5 strokes. So the Celtics are certainly contenders. They have been for pretty much a half a dozen years, except for one year when they were a 500 team and had to go through the play-in. For the most part, they've been playing in 5 of the last 7 Eastern Conference Finals. That's pretty good. They have to break through at some point because they put the pieces around Brown and Tatum to be, I think, the favorite to win this whole thing. And yeah, the thing that I like so much about Porzingis is he's also a very good defensive player. The players he was guarding last night with 3 of 15 from the floor, that's 20%. That's outstanding. So he's going to give you somewhat similar defense to Rob Williams, but he's going to give you way more offense than Rob Williams or Grant Williams. And then you got Drew Holiday, who's going to give you the defense of Marcus Smart and the offense of Malcolm Brogdon. So you traded 4 for 2, and you ended up with 2 best players out of those 6 players, Porzingis and Drew Holiday. Just kind of work on your depth, but I think they'll be okay during the regular season. You'll see some of Peyton Pritchard, maybe Jordan Walsh, who didn't play last night. You've got Al Horford, who can't play back-to-back nights, but he can give you some good minutes. You'll be fine. And then once you get to the postseason, you really only need 7, maybe 8 guys, and still make a move along the way because Brad Stevens has shown us he's very aggressive. I mean, they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals Game 7, and right away he was like, we've got to make changes, and big ones. He swings for the fences. He doesn't just try to tweak things. He went out and made big moves, and I think they're going to pay dividends.
Yeah, and look, we talked about it shortly after that season ended, and we were like, at some point, because I think the conversation centered around Marcus Smart, who eventually got traded. But the question was, it's like, and you had already said that, his longest, him being the longest tenured Celtic and his, success in the past has made him a leader, but almost to the detriment of the Celtics because their identity became more around Marcus Smart when it should be more Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, that type of thing. And, I certainly think there's some truth to that. And I think there was something that needed to happen other than just a minor depth move or bringing in a Malcolm Brogdon or something like that, moves that the Celtics have made in the past. But the reality of it was they weren't pushing the needle because, depth is good during the regular season and certainly it gets tested if you have injuries or whatever. But like you said, I mean, when it comes playoff time, you're playing your best play. I mean, Peyton Pritchard's a great player, but he's not going to, his minutes aren't going to increase in the playoffs, barring injury. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to lean on your best players during those couple months. And well, your best players are better than your best players before these trades were made, or at least on paper right now. So, I mean, they should be the favorite even over Milwaukee. Obviously Milwaukee was bounced in the first round, but I think they got better with Dame Lillard. I mean, again, they had to give up Drew Holiday, so they lost something I think more significant than what the Celtics did in order to get what they got. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, we were hoping for a Eastern Conference rematch last year. The Celtics got there. We'll see if the Milwaukee Bucks can get there this time.
Cleveland's going to crash the party and beat Milwaukee in round 2.
You got this thing for Ohio. I don't know. Are you a big Drew Carey fan?
I don't know. They've had more presidents than any other state, so maybe that's my affinity.
That's true. They're always.
Yeah. And they're always testing products or TV shows. Everything gets tested in Ohio because, to be honest with you, it is the most evenly represented state in the country. Like, you have a liberal city in Cleveland. Cincinnati's a conservative city. You've got farms. You've got urban areas. It's kind of a microcosm of the United States. So they always test these things. I just think Cleveland does match up against Milwaukee. If the seedings end up that way and they end up facing in the second round, I wouldn't be shocked if Cleveland beats Milwaukee in a 7-game series. Just telling that now, late October. This probably won't happen until May if it happens at all. But, just keep that in the back of your mind.
I will. I'll cut the clip too so we can use it. Hey, and I got no complaints about Ohio. They filmed the Shawshank Redemption there. I know because I visited there. So, it's.
Are you going to be in the sequel?
There's a
Can
sequel.
they have a sequel? Can they have a sequel?
No.
I mean, I guess you can have a sequel to anything, right? Actually, a prequel. Can you do that?
No, because it's I just first of all the sequel. Maybe catch up with Red, Red and Andy on the beach out in Mexico. Maybe they're still working on the boat. What 50, 60 years later? I mean,
you're right.
The reality of it is, I mean, they'd be quite old and possibly in a healthcare
Freeman
facility.
was old when the film came out.
Yeah, well,
although he really wasn't though, right? Wasn't he only like 50?
I don't know.
58
Morgan,
when that movie came out, he always appeared old.
Morgan Freeman has been really old my entire life. That's my perspective because every time I've ever seen him, he's been old. But but yeah, no, I appreciate it there. I look, if they did a sequel, I probably wouldn't see it because I don't want it to ruin it. And I think a prequel, it's like, what are you gonna do? You're not gonna replicate the two of them. I don't know. You just don't touch it.
It's not The Godfather. You can't expand as much as The Godfather.
No.
What is it with people? I sound like an old guy here. I sound like John McCain back in the 2008 presidential election. Remember, he was pointing at Obama. That one, like he was yelling at him. But most people I know in the media in your age group, mid to late 30s, early 40s, love that movie. That's like their favorite movie of all time. You know what my theory is on that? I think your favorite movie ends up being something that came out when you were maybe 10 years old. Like with me, it's The Godfather, right? I'm born in 1963. The Godfather comes out in 72. Godfather Part 2 in 1974. So I'm like 9 and 11 years old when that came out. I didn't see them at the theater. I mean, I was precocious, but not that much. But obviously I saw them later on, and that's connected with me. Obviously, being Italian American is a big reason why, but they're two phenomenal films. But it seems like a lot of people pick that as their favorite movie, or people a little older than you, it's Goodfellas. Those are like the two movies that everybody in sports media loves.
I think people in general, I mean, they're great movies. Who doesn't love Goodfellas? I mean,
look, I'm Martin Scorsese's biggest fan. It's his third best movie, but
but that's what I'm saying. I mean, that doesn't mean it's not a great movie.
Martin Scorsese's third best movie is like Tom Brady's third best Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's like he's got a lot of them.
So which one you're going to pick? And there's a discussion:
right,
is it Super Bowl 51? Is it Super Bowl 49? Is it Super Bowl 38? What about Super Bowl 50? 52. I see. I'm getting them confused. There's so many.
There were so many of them. Just pick a Roman numeral, and I'm sure some of them
between 36 and 53 or 55, you'll be pretty lucky. Yeah. You'll probably hit it at least once. A better odds than like roulette or anything like that. But
that's a good column someday. In Scorsese is Tom Brady. Now, okay. Here's the difference, though. Now, people would say De Niro is Bill Belichick. He said he just rode the coattails of Martin Scorsese, but De Niro was great. Now, the movie's not directed by Martin Scorsese. Godfather Part 2, The Deer Hunter, Awakenings, Midnight Run. You can go through a whole bunch of movies that he was great in with Martin Scorsese. That's a real dynamic duo, Scorsese and De Niro.
Well, you know what's interesting, actually, too, and it's funny because I just saw... I just saw this kind of... I guess this went viral on Twitter. People were was posting it a lot. This younger kid, I guess the TikTok, you can call it TikTok generation of kids. Yes. Humbug, right? I don't even know if they get that reference. It's kind of a double whammy there on us. But he was talking about how like boring Martin Scorsese films are, and you know what? The more I think about it, it might be more of a appropriate comparison because you get all these like I call them stat nerds out there, trying to explain why Tom Brady really wasn't great. It's like, wait a minute, like what are we doing here? What ELO, EPA, EKG? I don't know. See, now I'm starting to do the the old person bit, the snap face bit, But
Martin Scorsese directed Sharon Stone, to an Oscar nomination.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Right. I mean, that's really
Tom Brady nearly took Rashay Caldwell and that
right.
that group of flunkies to the Super Bowl.
Who is this TikTok kid? I want to talk to
I don't know.
His
appearance was very well, let's just say that it made sense. I'm not going to insult the kid, but if you saw it all adds up. Let's just put it that way. It was very just like roll your eyes, like, okay, all right, we get it. You're like, look, I love the Marvel movies as much as anyone, but like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that there's some like deep, incredible like theater. You know what I mean? It's like they're great in their own right. They serve a great purpose. They hit it out of the ball. Most of them hit it out of the ball, or at least, not so much lately, but like, during their heyday, I guess, they hit their genre out of the park. They did exactly it. But again, there's a difference between that type of movie and film and certain levels of theater. Yeah. So, and like, again, it's very actually, you know what? I'm really getting on board with this comparison, because if you think about it, now it's more about flashiness in the NFL. Oh, what looks cool? What? Marvel movies look cool. You got to get into those Scorsese movies, but they're deep and they're great and they're excellent. And, in some ways it's perfection, so to speak. And that's what Brady and some of these older, more pocket present quarterbacks.
Scorsese is Tom Brady. That's a good one.
Okay. Good.
What's Spielberg then? Joe Montana? I mean, because I think Spielberg's right there with Scorsese. In fact, you can go back and forth. Like, let me put it this way: Scorsese is the greatest director in terms of actors and actresses. He gets the best out of them. He gets deep into their soul. They're really incredible. They're not stories. I mean, it's kind of ironic. He won his Oscar for telling the most linear story he's ever had, which is The Departed. Whereas Spielberg is the best storyteller I've ever witnessed on film. Like his movies are just phenomenal.
You can argue that like some of Brady's MVP seasons weren't necessarily like they were like 2016. I think there's no one in the league that was better than Tom Brady in 2016. But because he missed those 4 games, there wasn't a chance in the world that he was going to get that MVP. So
George Brett won the MVP in 1980 playing 118 games.
That's crazy.
He hit 390. I mean, he was like by far the best player in the league. So like, okay, so Brady missed 4 games. He was 11-1. He won as many regular season games as Matt Ryan that year, and he played 4 fewer games.
The idea that Brady was some sort of media darling is false. There's obviously people out there that love him. There's no doubt about it. But I think
Skip Bayless.
Yes. I'm glad you started with me too, by the way. Thank you.
I did. I put you ahead of Uncle Skip. Deion Sanders loves Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying there's, and Michael Irvin was a big Tom Brady guy for sure. I mean, they're a lot of, they're cut from the same cloth, old school football guys, but they're really across the national media, and certainly the media that votes on these awards. He wasn't generally loved. I mean, like, people think, oh, he was the golden boy, and I'm like, no, not really. That was Jerry's shirt, by the way, the gold shirt. Remember that? Golden boy, always there, and then until it wasn't. But no, because I mean, honestly, John, the further we move away from 2021, the sillier that MVP race looks. I know. You're rolling your eyes. You're like,
I have his MVP.
No. You know what? The guy brought up a walkthrough tape with the Rams the other day. I'm okay with knocking on Aaron Rodgers a little bit, but the reality of it is, John,
he praised Mac Jones though.
Yeah, well, I don't care about that. No, I don't.
No,
I do. I just, I'm like, I got 20 plus years invested in this Tom Brady thing. It's far more deep for me, but no, but look, the reality of it is, the further we move away from that, the sillier that becomes, where it's like, how did that possibly happen? And look, John, there's people out there that just don't like Tom Brady, for whatever reason, whether it's, they think, they still believe the walkthrough stuff, or they think he's arrogant, or they're just tired of him winning, or this, that, and the other. But like,
that's it. That's the one.
No, oh, sure. I think
he's been around forever. I
yep.
think that's the biggest. You know who's similar? LeBron James. Okay, because LeBron James hasn't won an MVP since 2013.
Right.
Like, and you can't tell me over the last 10 years there aren't some years where there were several years where it was a joke that he was an MVP, or there was a joke that he finished third behind two guys who weren't as good or as valuable as him. And the same thing. It's almost like fatigue. Look, Jordan only won 5 MVPs. He probably should have 8. LeBron should have 7 or 8 MVPs, but I just think they got tired of it. And with Brady, sure, he should have more than 3 MVPs. You're kidding me. You can't be kidding me. But again, I think there was some sort of voter fatigue with Brady, and the guy was around forever, and he won so much that I think people kind of almost took him for granted, which is unfortunate.
Well, and I also think it's become far more of a popularity contest, especially I think in the social media era. You know what I mean? Because I think voters are influenced far more by fans, and most fans are influenced by emotion and not necessarily logic or reason. And it's like, well, guess what? There's a lot of fans out there of certain fan bases that hate Tom Brady, and that's fine. I mean, I get it, because they lost to him. I mean, the Bills. I mean, we're going to talk about the Bills here in a minute, but the last time they played the Bucs, it was not necessarily a pleasant memory. This time it might be so because, Tom Brady's not walking through that door. Unfortunately for the Bucs, it's Baker Mayfield, but yeah, it's just, it's one of those things where I just, I look at the MVP award now and I'm like, okay, I think we talked about it a little bit on Tuesday. Like, it's shaping up. Like, I'm already kind of accepting. It's like, all right, I think it's going to default to Patrick Mahomes this year, probably. I mean, there's because really there's no other quarterback, and it's not like, I mean, he's not even lapping. It's not like he's lapping the field. So, it's to me, I'm just I don't know. I'm going to see it. Maybe more guys should get love from other positions this year, but it's not going to happen. And I've always said, I understand that. I get it. It's a quarterback's game. But if any year so far, it's yeah, maybe we could look outside the box a little bit. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, Kyle brings up is Lamar, which I find very curious that, most of the odds or lists of favorites don't include him. And you can argue that he's might be the best quarterback in the league right now through this first 7 weeks.
He may have had the best game any quarterback had this year against Detroit.
Yeah.
He was perfect, right? I mean, everything, the throwing, running, and even Dan Campbell after the game said we had no answers for him. Now they're building up that offense, getting more comfortable with it. And he's got some weapons there on the outside, so now we can see his game really expand. Yeah, I mean, that could be what it comes down to, those two quarterbacks. McCaffrey's going to be in there. If San Francisco goes, 13-4, and he averages more than a touchdown per game. I'm dead serious when I say all I want to see, and again, we have to see how the year plays out, is I want to see Trent Williams get 1 fifth-place vote, and then I'll be happy. Because I think he's the most dominant player in the league, but who the hell's going to vote for a left tackle for MVP? But it would be kind of. Well,
I was just gonna say, everything you said about Christian McCaffrey sounds great, but I don't even think they want to vote for running backs, let alone offensive linemen. Right. You know what I mean? So it's again, like I said, I think there's reason why quarterbacks dominate it, but I also think there's, I don't know, kind of a, I think the voting process could certainly use a bit of an overhaul, whether it's procedure wise or voter wise, because it's just, like I said, it's like the, and I know this always gets to you. I mean, these are the same people, not technically the same people, but the same people who vote on baseball Hall of Fame, and they use emotion and not necessarily logic and sound reasoning. It's, I had this stance against this, or I don't, this, that, and the other, or, you know what I mean? It's just how it is. So, anyways, Thursday Night Football tonight, Bucs and Bills. I mentioned the last time the Bucs and Bills played. The Bills, well, it was pretty much just like every other ending for, say, Tom Brady-led team. They lost, and in pretty devastating fashion, in a walk-off touchdown throw from Tom Brady. Happened to be his 700th touchdown, which is kind of nice. The Bill Belichick just got his 300th win against the Bills. Like Belichick's had like his 150th win, his 200th win, his 250th win, and like now his 300th win against the Bills. That's pretty funny. And just kind of more of like just hammering home that misery that Buffalo has suffered over the last 20 some odd years, and perhaps could be continuing, because right now, I mean, their stock is not too hot, and we'll see what happens tonight because, well, look, I mean, the Bucs they're certainly capable of beating a team like Buffalo for sure, because Buffalo tends to play down and to their opponent, for one, and two, they tend to, well, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot quite a bit. But what's driving me crazy though, John, is, and I saw this, someone laid it out on Twitter, and the Bucs are doing the Bucs are using play action almost more than any other team in the league right now, which, I mean, just go play any show from last NFL season. You heard me complaining about how awful the Bucs play calling was. They're creating turnovers more than any other team in the league, something that just miraculously disappeared last year. I don't know. It was astonishing. I think they went, at one point, John, they went 6 straight weeks without a turnover. And the one that broke that streak was an end of the half interception on a Hail Mary. So, like, they legitimately went almost a half a season, John, without creating a turnover. Now they're doing it on nearly 2 a game at this rate. So
doesn't that happen a lot though in the NFL? Like one year, a lot of turnovers, the next year, not so many. It's kind of cyclical.
Well,
I mean, last year and said we're not going to create turnovers.
Last year was I think was more of a kind of just an aberration because, well, I don't know. I think the whole vibe around the team last year was really down. So I don't know if that led to it. There was injuries for sure. But the point is like everything that I complained about, or a lot of people, I'm not trying to take credit for it. Actually, no, I am, because I think I was, obviously I'm always first in line to defend Tom Brady. So I was on this stuff from the get-go. But the reality of it is they're doing everything that they should have done last year, and they're doing it, well, at a rate they should have. The only problem is Baker Mayfield's one of the worst quarterbacks utilizing play action this year. Like,
yeah,
it's so it's so
right.
painfully funny, but like like I said, it's painful, it's funny, and then it goes back to being painful because we talked about it last year, and I certainly talked about it. Tom Brady, despite the incredible low usage and the lack of a running game, I see people out there saying like, "Oh, well, you can't do play action successfully without a running game." I'm like, "Yes, you can." I've seen Tom Brady do it for years, and
he can.
Yeah, well, yeah, he can. I mean, maybe not Baker Mayfield. That's the point. I mean, the Bucs have, for the most part, I mean, this is what we heard in hindsight after Brady and the Bucs won the Super Bowl in 2020, was that, oh, the Bucs were a super team, ready to go. They had all this talent. Well, I'm like, great. Every team in the NFL has talent. Okay? Like, the quarterback matters the most. And I think, it wasn't just a quarterback, as I've said before. So, a little bit different matchup for the Bills this time around. No Tom Brady, lucky them. Unless, there's some big plan for him to come back and, steal the show. I'd be okay with that. Like pro wrestling meets the NFL. And I'm not talking about a Pat McAfee crossover. Okay. I'm sick of that. I'm thinking like, okay, lights go out. Do we lose power? Is this like Super Bowl, 30? I don't know. 40 something.
Ravens 49.
Yeah. 48. What's no. 47. 48 was
year
Seahawks.
After the Patriots, Giants.
Right.
By 2. Yeah.
Oh,
47. I can remember every Super Bowl just based on when the Patriots played.
Yeah, well,
usually a year after, a year before.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's gonna be a while before we get out of that era of football. But anyways, getting back to like what we're actually going to see tonight. Like I the Bills are obviously the better team. They have the better quarterback, but at the same time, Josh Allen has not really. He's turning the ball over. This team looks lost at times. and too frequently to just sit there and say, oh, it is what it is. It's not a big deal. No, this team has looked, downright ugly at times, and you're expecting them to compete for a Super Bowl, and right now, I just don't see that. And quite frankly, look, I'm going to pick the Bills tonight, but I have no confidence in that pick. Like if we come on the air tomorrow and we're talking, Friday morning, we're talking about the Buccaneers beating the Bills, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm just going to be like, well, what do you expect? This is a Bills team that's lost to the Patriots. They've competed. They nearly lost to the Giants the week before. So yeah, I'll be interested to see tonight. I mean, like I said, I'm going to pick the Bills, but my confidence level is like probably a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, they generally win blowouts or lose close games. The Giants game being the anomaly where they won 14-9. I think they're going to blow out Tampa tonight because the thing about Buffalo, when everything starts to roll early, they're unstoppable. The problem is sometimes they're not ready to play in the first half of the first quarter. That was the case last week. It was 10-0 before you sat down and enjoyed your sandwich watching the game. So I think Buffalo wins in a blowout because this is what they do. And then the narrative tomorrow will be, well, look out for Buffalo. They're going to get their act together. Yada, yada, yada. And then they'll blow a game 2 weeks from now against somebody they should beat.
And we'll be right back to square one. So
yeah,
that's how it is. But all right, that's going to do it for us here today. We've had a fun little show, NBA, some Scorsese / Brady talk, which I'm always all for, and then of course some Thursday Night Football. So tomorrow we will do the rest of Week 8. We'll give our picks and talk about what we saw tonight. And hey, who knows? Maybe we'll have some more actor and football player and director comparisons. We'll do some fun stuff like that. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.